Before we get started, I need to ask some questions and figure out who we have in the audience. So we're going to make this simple. Teachers, how many teachers do we have here? Good, good, nice. How many college teachers, professors do we have here? Actually, I'm looking. Okay, good. How many administrators do we have here? Lots of administrators, principals, important people, right? Not like me. Okay, good. Nice. How many business, here for business? Okay, good. Okay, so mostly educators. Got it. My name is Terry Lindeman. I'm from Canadian International School, and I want to start with you with a story. First of all, why should you be here? Why should you be listening to me? I've taught for about 30 years. I've taught everything except for math. You don't want me to teach math. And my wife teaches math. That's how we keep it in the family. I've implemented technology in 3 different districts. I've been doing this since 1991, so I'm kind of old. I started when technology was a VCR. And then we moved to computers, and then we moved to this and that, and it just continues to go. And ironically, as I was looking outside at the vendors, and this is not a good thing, because I'm going to back up for just a second. The person who spoke before me had some amazing comments, and he talked, Post-it notes, very technological. He talked about primary ed, he talked about syllabus hasn't changed much. And he talked about professors, and professors aren't teaching the skills to the teachers who are teaching our kids. And that's a problem. And so today I'm really going to talk about a makerspace, but I'm going to talk about a pedagogical change in the way we teach. So hang on, I'm going to tell lots of stories today. The first story, maybe, oh, here we go, is my light bulb story. When I was 11 years old, I decided I was going to make a light bulb. And it's not like a light bulb hadn't been made before, but I thought, oh, I'll make a light bulb. And I'm trying to think, how am I going to make this light bulb? And so then I came up with a bell jar, and it had a cork on it because I needed to seal it. And so then I took the bell jar, and I needed electricity. And so then I took a cord off one of my mother's appliances, which probably wasn't a wise thing. I cut the end off, and then I ended up with this wire. And I stuck a hole in the cork, and it went inside, and then I sealed it with silicone because I needed to create a vacuum. And then what happened is I needed a filament. So I grabbed some wire, and I twisted it up, and I connected the 2 inside. But then I realized that I needed a vacuum. And I'm 11 years old. I don't know much about vacuums and things like that. So, but I did know that matches, he warned me about that. Matches eat up oxygen. So what I did is I took matches, and I took these matches, and I caught them on fire, and I attached them to the thing, and I put them in the jar, and I waited, and then it went out. And there was no oxygen there. And I got so excited. This is cool. So then I plug it in, and immediately I got this light, and it went out. It didn't work. It was a failure. I'm thinking, oh. I've been doing that kind of stuff all my life, and my parents haven't really been excited about that. But when we look at makerspaces, what we're looking at is we're looking at an idea where kids, sorry, I'm skipping that one, where kids get an opportunity to make things. And they get an opportunity to play with physics. And they get an opportunity to play with electronics. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to tell you some ways that a makerspace can work. I'm not going to give you lots of statistics. I worked in a makerspace for 3 years in Kansas City at a science museum. And so I'm going to take a lot of those theories, and I'm just going to talk to you. In fact, I'm just going to tell you stories today. A makerspace is a collaborative workspace that focuses on learning, exploring, and sharing. I'm using PowerPoints because PowerPoints apparently make you seem more organized. Why? There's lots of reasons why. I can talk about STEM, I can talk about engineering, I can talk about 21st century learning skills. I can talk about all those things that administrators love to hear, because you need to hear that. You need to justify why you're going to have these programs. And I can tell you lots of things. I'm doing this same session tomorrow, but I get an hour and a half to do it tomorrow. So I'm going to do it in like 15 minutes. So we're going to skip some things today. But here's the real reason why. In our society today, we're training our kids to be consumers, not makers or innovators. Now, when we give them an iPad or a computer, we can make them amazingly creative. They can create this video, they can create amazing stuff. But they're not being innovative. They're not creating new things. And so in a makerspace, what we do is we work on innovators. We work on kids. We give them the opportunity to make things and play. This seems like fun that's in my hand, isn't it? It's kind of distracting. I'm not going to throw it at anybody. One of the things we do in a makerspace is we play. We all enjoy playing. It's funny. In elementary school, we encourage our kids to play. Then we get them in 6th grade, and then we encourage them to study. Then we get them into high school, and then we encourage them to suffer. Because we take tests, right? We don't play anymore. We don't enjoy education. And so we really struggle with that. And so we're looking at a pedagogical shift when we look at makerspaces. Okay, 3 stories. I'm going to put this down. First story. This is a 3D printed rocket. I have a kid. He's a 6th grader, very diminutive, typical 6th grader, full of energy, can't sit still. I love him to death. He's like one of my boys. We were doing rockets. We made this rocket launcher. We were doing paper rockets and airplanes, and half the rockets would fly and half the rockets wouldn't. And Talon was very interested in making a rocket. And so I took Talon and I said, okay, Talon, what kind of rocket do you make? And so he Googles and he comes up with this rocket design. He says, I want to make this rocket. And I go, great, how are you going to make that rocket? And so then we get on a program called Tinkercad. Very simple program, works on Mac. It's amazing. It works on everything. It's a free program. It's a drag and drop. All you do is you take shapes. And so he said, I don't know. And so we took a shape, we drug it, and I go, you need to make it bigger. How do I make it bigger? I don't know, let's try this. And so he's going through all this stuff. And he's saying, this isn't going to work. And I go, why isn't it going to work? Well, because we need a hole. How can we put a hole? And so Tal and I were going back and forth. And he comes in over lunch and does this. And for days, probably 4 days, he works on this. And each day, he comes in with an idea, and he tries it, and then I put something addition, and he says, that's not my rocket. And I go, it is your rocket. But we made it bigger, or we put a hole here. And he goes, that's not my rocket. And I go, it is your rocket. It's not my rocket. And I go, this is your account, Talon. It's your rocket. Oh, it's my rocket. And so then we build a rocket. The problem is, this is what it looks like. The problem is, my 3D printer can only print 16 centimeters, and this is about 32 centimeters. And so I said, Talon, we can't print this. How are we going to print it? I don't know. How are we going to print it? We can't print it. We'll make it smaller. You don't want to make it smaller, then it won't fly. And so I said, what if we cut it in half? Oh, that's a good idea. And so then I showed him how to cut it in half. And he was all excited. I go, Talon, this isn't going to print because you can't print in midair. And he said, what do you mean? He says, we can't print this because the printer, it's like, trying to do something in midair. It will fail. We can't print this. We have to turn it upside down to print it. He goes, how do we do that? I don't know. Long story short, this is Talon's rocket. It kind of flies. We took about 4 days to do it. And he was excited. And Talon isn't a kid who can sit for very long. I mean, even when we were designing this, he was all over the place. But this is just one simple example of a kid coming up with an idea with a little help from me, figuring it out, and designing a rocket. We even had to figure out how to put it together. And so this is one example, one story of a kid in a kind of a classroom, really learning probably more about physics by doing this, and it failed several times, than he does in a classroom. And so these are the things that a makerspace should encourage. Okay, these are some of my students. This is our makerspace. You'll get to see some more pictures of it. And they were given a challenge, and they had to build a tall tower. And this group isn't a very functional group. They don't like each other, But they came up with this amazing tower. I'm going to tell you another story about another student. I'll call him Bob. I'm just trying to protect his name. Bob struggles in school. He loves technology, but he struggles with technology often, uses it inappropriately in class. We're a one-to-one iPad school. And so I get Bob into the Makerspace. And Bob is, he loves doing these little bits. And what it is, it teaches circuitry. And it's negative and positive, and you stick, and it will only go one way. And you can make noises, you can make things move. It's an amazing little device. We have several of them. You can see the other kids there. Bob, I introduced him to this, and now Bob is in my classroom almost every day doing something. He created a rocket also, but it didn't fly because it wasn't the right size. He failed miserably on that. Bob enjoys it because he's not a very good student. This gives him the opportunity to do two things. One, to be recognized for his accomplishments, because he doesn't get A's, he doesn't get B's, he struggles in class. But most importantly, it makes him feel important. And sometimes in our classrooms, as a 30-year teacher, some kids, they feel left out. And we leave kids out because that just happens. And so with Makerspaces, we don't do that. These are some other pictures. If you look at them, you notice that they're very focused or they're smiling. This is an example of something, an activity that we do. I'll talk a little bit about activities. This is a deconstructive activity. We take old laptops, anything electronic, and we make the kids, we don't make the kids, they love this. They tear them apart and they figure out how they work. And then we take the parts and we cannibalize them, and then we make robots with them. A Makerspace is going to create a well-rounded student. At Canadian International School, we work really hard not to just educate a student, and I'm not trying to advertise. A lot of you guys probably do this. We try to create a well-rounded student. When I was interviewing for one of my jobs, the superintendent asked me, he said, how can we determine if a child is successful in your class? And I said, well, when they graduate and they are a functional human being and they're creative and they get a family, and the superintendent didn't like my answer. He says, no. We need to determine if they are successful now. And I like the superintendent, but how can we do that? We don't know if we've been successful until after a kid gets out of school. I've had students in my classroom that I thought, there's no way they're going to succeed. And they come out and they do. And then you look at another student who's got it made, they're a perfect student, and then they fail when they get out into the real world. And so I think sometimes we focus on the wrong skills. When I was looking outside, I looked and I saw that most of the vendors were they deal with assessment. They deal with tutoring. I wrote the notes down. They don't deal with really educational stuff. They like keeping track of education, turn it in. And I'm not saying that's bad, but I'm looking at the way our technology is moving. It's like it's moving towards assessments and things that are really something from the 19th century. And so with a Makerspace, we don't focus on tests. We focus on making things. These are what I believe are amazing skills that we learn. Makerspace, well-rounded students, they burn their hands with hot glue guns. It's amazing what they can do with a hot glue gun. They hit their finger with a hammer. Have you seen kids try to hammer a nail? From the teacher's side, it's kind of enjoyable watching them miss. I never hold a nail for them. They get paint on their clothes. They cut their fingers. It's amazing. The kids are trying to cut, and they have a knife, and their thumb is right here. And I go, pause just a second. What's going to happen? Oh. They get frustrated with group members. We were doing this activity, and it's amazing. They could not get anything right, and they were all leaders. It's like 4 lead superintendents in a group trying to make things happen, and they couldn't. And they experienced failure. We don't let our kids fail enough. We are so afraid of, as parents. I'm a parent, I have 2 kids, and I amazingly get frustrated, and I try to protect my kids, and we can't. We need to let them fail. But the part of the failure is, with failure they learn success. And the thing about it is, you know when you make something like this, if it's success or failure. You know, if you build a car and it doesn't run, it's a failure. If you build an engine and it doesn't work, it's a failure. If you build an electronic circuit and the bulb lights up, you know that's the success. And so it's very easy to determine what you're doing. My time is pretty much up. These are some, I'm just going to show you some pictures. This is an elementary teacher. She's amazing. The kids are doing mosaics. Most of the stuff we work with is trash. We find trash, we make things with it. There we go. They did a group where they were doing, they were going to Mars and they had to build their rocket ships. These are teachers, and we get teachers in the Makerspace because they like playing as much as anybody else. These are teachers trying to design things like this. They are so focused. I've never seen them that focused before. And these are things that we do. This is our space. I'm going to skip all this because this is all the stuff that you guys really like, because you like to justify why we're doing this, right? Because there's lots of money involved. Good. Okay. I'm going to stop. Do you have questions about a Makerspace? I can't. Yes, sir. Craziest. The craziest thing I've done in a Makerspace?
That is conventionally crazy.
Conventionally crazy.
Other than marriage. Yeah.
Whoa, that's funny. I guess the craziest thing is we made this rocket. We made this compressed air rocket launcher, and it's like a cannon. And the kids, and we pump it up to 50 pounds, and then we put stuff on it, and it either blows up or it goes in the air, one of the two. This one actually goes in the air. The paper one's just, the top just pops off. So that's kind of crazy. I give kids soldering irons. It's amazing what they solder. Sometimes they solder, or most of the time they find something to poke it into. Yes?
How do you differentiate between the Makerspace and Fab Labs?
Really the same thing. I'm gonna be Fab Labs, Makerspaces, shop class. They're really all the same thing. We've just changed the name. In the night, when I was going to school, it was called shop class. Now we've changed it to Makerspaces. It's really the same, exact same concepts. And there are some, Bangalore has some pretty good spaces. I know. Yes, and we do 3D printing. We do. That's another session. But yeah, we have so we even do sewing, knitting, whatever the kids are interested in. Tinkercad. I use Tinkercad. Tinkercad it's a freeware program. It works on a computer. It works on iPads, which is what our kids do. It is amazingly simple, and the best thing is it has tutorials. So when you go on there as a teacher, you go through the lessons, and there's tons of lessons, and you learn how to manipulate things. Kids pick up, the kids are going to do better than us. They do. But yeah, Tinkercad is an amazing 3D program.
I have just two simple questions. I represent a school in Hyderabad.
Yes.
Are these projects or whatever you get the kids to learn and make, are they linked to the curriculum? Question number one.
Okay.
Two is, what are the infrastructural requirements that you would need from the school's perspective?
Perfect. The first question is hard to answer. Right now, the way we use our Makerspace is kids come in when they have free time, or a teacher comes and says, we're doing this in our classroom. Do you have an activity to help with that? And so we do align it with the curriculum. But I will go into a class or the class will come to me. Word of warning, we love grading things. When you start grading stuff and giving them credit for this kind of work, you defeat the whole purpose. Because now it's a matter of getting it perfect so I can get the A. Not a matter of, this didn't work, I get the F. Does that make sense? And so I caution you with the Makerspace, and I've worked in formal education settings, and I've worked in non-educational, non-formal. The informal is amazing. Kids can come, they can go, they can do what they want. But CIS is making this a class next year, so we'll see how that works. The second one, this is easy. If you have a person who's interested, and you have a few hot glue guns, and you have bottles, and you have wrappers and whatever, you don't need anything formal. Most of the stuff we work with is trash. Seriously. We get bottles, we take apart things, we put wires here and there, but seriously, you can start with no budget. Or you can buy the 3D printer. You can get the sewing machines. You can buy the little bits, which are extremely expensive. So you can buy those things and facilitate it. But how many of you have kids and you give them a present and they open the box and they play with the box? You know, little kids do that. Oh, a box, wow. Same idea. Kids will play, you know, they can make anything out of anything.
So it's a low cost, no cost.
Low cost, yeah. There's three ways. There's a high tech, low tech, and no tech. And so I like hanging out in the low tech and no tech. The high tech, we are focused way too much. Oh, sorry, this is probably against all of your. My master's was on this. We focus way too much on shiny things like iPads and computers and 3D printers.
Thank you very much. Hope you would be interested to come to Hyderabad.